Hello everybody, this is Ruben Gorjian. Thank you for joining. I just came back from two amazing workshops. One was in Atlanta, the other one was in Raleigh in North Carolina. Both workshops were amazing. I had more than 8-10 people on each workshop, so I have had really good turnaround. The reason why I took this workshop because I'm just finding out that I love teaching. I love sharing my knowledge with people that are starting out, are beginners, are intermediate, or they have some kind of struggle working with off-camera flash as well. So I'm gonna go through some images that I shot with my group at this workshop, and I'm gonna teach you, I'm gonna explain you my breakdown of my meta process, how I create images, and which gear did I use, and so on. So let's dive in immediately, and let's start with the first image. Before that, actually, let me start with some of the gear. So I'm a Sony shooter, and I've been shooting these two workshops with the Sony A7r3 with the latest firmware update, and I was really amazed by the update that this camera got. The eye focusing was really keen in it, and I was really pleased with it. So guys, if you didn't do it and you have a Sony either A7R3 or A9, just jump into the website. I'm gonna add the link in description, and just go and update your firmware for the Sony camera. So my main two lens for this for when I shoot portrait is either the Sigma 105 millimeter 1.4. This is really it's a beast. It's really a tank. It's an amazing portrait lens. It's 105. It's a little bit heavy. It's when you use a mirrorless and a Sony, it gives you really a weight on the front of the camera, so you have to always be careful and hold it with two hands when you shoot it, and be very careful of camera shake because of the weight of the lens. But beside that, it's really a beast. It's really a killer lens, and I do suggest you to consider it, or at least to rent it. Then I'm using really my favorite lens that Sony has produced. I love my wide angle 16 to 35. If you know my work, and if you have seen any of my other YouTube video or images, you'll see that a good 60 to 70% of my images has been shot with with my 16 to 35. It's a very wide S16, and the good part of it is that it does not distort a lot on the edges. So it's that's one of the key part of using a wide angles, is the distortion at the edge of your frame. We're gonna go over it later on with the trick how to use a 16 to 35. So stay tuned. My last lens that I've used on this workshop was the classic 70 to 200 f 2.8 Sony GM, and I love this compression. I love the sharpness of this lens as well, and it's a must lens for any portrait or wedding photographer. So that's another lens that you should consider it if you don't have it already. Okay, so this is it for my gear that I have been used on my two workshops. And if you want to know more about my workshop, please send me an email, send me a text. You can find me on Instagram at Ruben Gorjian Photo. You can follow me, of course, on YouTube, or can you follow me as well on Facebook, either personally on my Facebook page, or by joining my off-camera flash Facebook group, which link is right here, and I will post it also on the description of this video. So let's jump first with the first image and let's see what happens over there. Okay, so let's start from one of the images from, actually this was from day 2, and we went to this national park right next to the studio, and it was around 2 p.m. so it was very harsh sunlight condition, as you can see from the hotspot that the model had on top of her head. So we had this situation over here where we had this floating wooden platform that goes all the way here, and there is a parallel platform on the other side where I'm standing. So because Samantha had a light gray outfit, I decided to position her on this side of the other platform because the background was darker and she would have stand out much better than on the other side where I'm gonna show you later. The sun was hitting the grass and everything was much brighter as a background. So the sun condition is they're almost the same on the two spots. On this one I have more shadow on her side rather than on the other side. As you can see, I had the towel on top of the AD600. So I used a Godox AD600 Pro and was shooting at full power, as you can see, and had no modifier because I had to get the most power from the strobe as possible because the conditions were really harsh. It was 90 degrees, sunny, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so I need to take the most out of the strobe to lift those shadows. As I said, I had a towel to prevent the overheating from the sun. So if you live in a location where there is a lot of sun throughout the day, throughout the year, or in the summertime, I suggest you to wrap your strobe with a white dry towel so it will prevent to overheat. So as I said, I positioned my subject against a darker background because she had a clear or a white or light gray outfit, and I was using my Sony A7r3. 7200 was my choice of lens, and the EXIF was high-speed syncs at the 1/1600 of a second, f2.8 and ISO 80. I always teach at my workshop that I love to use my lowest ISO possible to get the sharpest images possible. As I said, it was at 2 p.m. As you can see from the sun, from the shadows, they are very short. You can see right over here how the shadows are very short, and that tells you how high was the sun at that moment. So don't be afraid to shoot at harsh condition at midday because there is a way out. Don't fight the sun, just embrace it and position your subject at the best possible angle to get the most quality of the light possible. And that was the final image. I cropped it in a little bit on camera for this final image. I warmed it up a little bit. As you can see, the posing is very flattering. I asked Samantha to push her hip back. I have a triangle here, I have a gap over here, I have a triangle over here, and she's looking straight at the camera. The flash you can see from this shadow the strobe gave me enough light to lift those shadows and create a very believable image, and the background is perfectly exposed. Okay, so let's jump to the next one. So that one is like we call open shade. So there is a sunny condition as natural light, but I position Elise on open shade, so there is a shade created by natural elements like the trees and the house. Okay, so posing, push the hip on one side, create this beautiful curve, pose your arms on a way that you can create a gap on at the waist, so she doesn't look she does look even more slimmer. I would have maybe asked her to close her elbow a little bit more, just to eliminate some of the volume of her body. So create gaps to enhance her slim figure. Break the static pose by creating an S shape by pushing her hip on one side and arching her back. We create that beautiful S shape. Expose for your background, add your off-camera flash, pose your subject, and then at the end you take your shot. The last thing you have to do is just pose your subject. When these two parts of your image is set, then you're allowed to pose your subject. I use a Godox A7r3 Pro. It was a 1/4 of a power, easy glow as my modifier choice, and a C-stand. I like to feather the light many times, and that we create that shadows on her face. Sony A7r3. I use a Sigma 105 at 1/640 of a second, f2.0, and my lowest ISO I could get out of this one was ISO 64. This image is the straight out of camera image, so you can clearly see how my background is exposed, and that's the final image. I had an image without the softbox, and I was able to align the two images and to mask out the stand and the modifier. So as you can see, the image is amazing, perfectly exposed in the background. If I zoom in, you can see how sharp she is, and she has a beautiful catch light on her face as well. Same scenario, I ask Elise not to sit on this part of the cabin. You can see how many triangles I was able to create. 1, 2, 3. I mean, she has a white pants, so you cannot see it, but you can. The eye can see that there is a triangle over here, one over here, and one over here. So by creating so many triangles, it's a pose that pleases the eye, and the eyes are dragged to those triangle shapes. By arching her back, she's gonna push out her chest. We create a gap over here, and we'll enhance her top of the chest. Creating the triangle within your pose, as I said, it pleases the eye of the viewer. Godox A7r3 Pro, 1/4 of a power, easy glow, C-stand. You see, I didn't change my settings from this image to this image. Once you locked in your exposure and the natural environment does not change, meaning the sun goes behind a cloud or something like that, there is no way for you to change your off-camera settings or your exposure settings in your camera. Same thing as before, expose for your background, add your off-camera flash, and pose your subject. So over here, that's the opposite side of where we shot the first image of Samantha. Now, as you can see, we have the bright background. Then I chose to use Elise because she had a darker outfit, so she would fit a little bit better, she would stand out better than a lighter outfit. So that was my choice. You could have done the other way around as well, but because I wanted to split it 2 groups, so I opted on this way. So posing tips: break the pose, create a gap, create triangles, arch the back and push the hip. So as you can see, by arching her back, I create this gap. Now her chest is out. I ask her to bring her arm on top of her head, create another triangle over here, pushing her hips, enhance the figure, and separate these 2 legs, because she has these white pants that if you get those 2 legs together, you cannot see the gap and it looks wider than it is. Sony A7r3s with the 7200, 1600 of a second, 2.8 at ISO 80. Here are the triangle that we spoke about it. So I use a 8600 with a 7-inch reflector at full power. So over here I circle in red how short was the shadow. So the sun was really coming from right here, and it was at 2 p.m. So this was the final image. As you can see, I was able to, when you have a stand right here in the middle, position the stand where it's easy to clone out. In an environment like this one, it's very easy to clone out an unwanted elements such as a stand or a person right in this image. So I was able to really lock my focus on Elise, and with the compression of the 7200 at f2.8, it creates this effect that is really outstanding. Now, one of the wide angle images that I love from this workshop was this one, 16-35 Sony GM. It's one of my really favorite lens. So I don't know if you can see, but you see this S shape that I was able to create. So by twisting the body of your subject, it will create a flatter S curve, and it will look a very natural pose as well. So I asked Samantha to have her left leg over the right one, and to rest her right arm on this step. By doing that, you create this like an S shape on her body, and by crossing the legs, you slim the volume of her body. That's another trick that you would like to consider. I ask her to put her left arm on her left hip and to hide the elbow all the way in the back. And my off-camera flash, the MagMod softbox, is coming from this side, so I ask her to look into the light. So I use a Godox 8600 with a MagBox 24 inches, and I add the speed ring in order to attach the MagBox to 8600. I just posted a video about the speed ring and the 8600 on the MagBox on the MagMod website, Facebook group, and as well on my off-camera flash Facebook group as well, so you might want to check it out. We are in open shade, and the trick on this part is, do you see this spots of sun? That was the hardest part to pose Samantha, because she was all the way to the edge, because I want her to be on the shade and not to have this kind of hot spot from shadow and the highlights from given by the tree and the sun. So I exposed for my background, for the blue sky, I added my off-camera flash, I posed my subject, and I took my shot. The settings are 16 to 35 at 60mm, so it was pretty wide open, pretty wide angle, and 1/100 of a second. I was not on high-speed sync, I was at f11, so I could get everything touch sharp, and of course my lowest ISO possible at ISO 64. When you use a wide angle, watch out for the distortion. Her legs are a little bit distorted because I pose her close to the edge of the frame. When you use a wide angle, you should always try to have your subject in the middle of the frame, so she get the less distortion possible. And that was the final image, and that's it, guys. So thank you for tuning in, and if you have any question, please do not hesitate to post them in the comments over here. I would really appreciate that you subscribe to my channel and to push that like button as well. You can follow me on my social media. Instagram is Ruben Gorjian Photo. You can follow me on YouTube, of course, and my Facebook group, which link is appearing right now, and I'm gonna add it also to the description of this video. So thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you on my next video.